Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once again to the dungeon of the Doctors of Doom, where I am your host, Alex the Shark Sparks, and joining me this week is Mitch. Late in 2025 is better than his earliest time back in the early 2000s, and of course, our producer, noted Eagles fan, Vinny Fly Eagles Fly Santucci. Say hello to everyone out there in TV land, boys.
Hello.
Fly, Eagles, fly. That's the closest I've ever gotten to winning a Super Bowl in my lifetime, actually, is you guys bagging on me for not even being an Eagles fan.
Yeah, well, for context, I wasn't part of the conversation. I just sat down and thought you guys were talking about fantasy football, and you were talking about you being an Eagles fan. So that's interesting. Lots of sports news to discuss, like we've been talking about. We got basketball playoffs, NHL playoffs. Not going to talk baseball this week. Nothing's happening. WNBA, Caitlin Clark being an absolute baller still making news cycles, even all these, like a year basically removed from when people thought she would be relevant. So, like, she's still making that sport relevant, which I think is a big game. We'll get into all that. But do you guys have any topics you want to any hot button topics you want to start off on? There is one thing I want to say real quick. Props to Around the Horn. For those who never watched that show on ESPN, show's been on for forever. It's ancient. But that was a great show. And today was their last episode, and that show's going to be missed. I know I'm one of the people that used to watch and don't anymore. That's probably why I got canceled, but man, it's very well lasted. So props to those guys. Good stuff.
Do you know why it got canceled?
I do not.
Tony Reali was on my favorite show that I listen to every day, and he's also one of the guys who's putting his name in the ring to take over for Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick's already signed an exit contract to where he's got 2 years left, so they're going to fill that spot or that show and might even keep the Dan Patrick. And Tony Reali, the reason he said he didn't fight for it that hard was because he wants to move on to do a show like Rich Eisen, Dan Patrick, or McAfee. He thinks that's the future where you can be heard, seen, and do your own thing. He said on the Dan Patrick show, he said that the only thing management gave him was the episodes were becoming, and I quote unquote, not my word, and it's really funny to hear Dan Patrick say this word, but he said, quote unquote, too woke.
I'm sorry. They told Reali that
Around the Horn?
Around the Horn was too woke, or they told Dan Patrick that he was too woke?
No, let me rephrase it. Tony Reali on the Dan Patrick show said the only thing he got from management over the last 6 months was too woke. You can even go listen to Monday's hour 3, and it's Tony Reali the whole hour. They don't talk anything else but Around the Horn. And I think Tony Reali attributed to Tim Kalashaw's recovering from alcoholism. Israel Gutierrez came out about being gay on the show. The whole thing with Mina Kimes. There was a couple other, and it all has been happening in the last like 5-6 years, where it was like, oh, Woody Page's like memory loss diagnosis or whatever. They even touched on like why Mariotti got fired like 10 years ago or whatever, and how he wouldn't be fired today, and all these kind of things. And that's what Tony Reali said on the show. The only thing he could come up with was that they started infusing. He said that they asked to get rid of the mute button, and management flipped out and stopped talking to him after that. He said like 6 to 7, 8 months ago, he proposed, can we get rid of the mute button on the show? It's too offensive. It's too demeaning. It's too demoralizing. Like who gets to decide when you mute someone's opinion or whatever? And apparently over the course of 7, 8 months, instead of doing doing the things that they wanted, they just decided the show's over with, done. We can do stuff more like Pat McAfee and all those type of things is the future or whatever. We don't need this. And then apparently they wanted to get rid of some of the talking heads like Kalashaw and these guys, and bring in have one episode this week, have like Travis Hunter on.
Sorry to interrupt you, but can you clarify, when you're saying they want to get rid of the mute button, they want to bring in people, are you referring to the bosses at ESPN, or are they Tony Reali and the people running the show?
Tony Reali and the people running the show wanted to get rid of the mute button. They proposed it 6 or 7, 8 months ago to management, and management apparently was never the same after that with how they handled the show. And then 6, 7 months later, Tony Reali's contract for ESPN ends in August. He's been trying to get his contract redone for like 2 years now, he said. A year now, he said. And he said up until 7, 8 months ago, they just stopped talking to him when they tried to propose these changes to Around the Horn. And then they said back to him, too woke, too woke. That's all they kept saying to Reality. And Reality said on the Dan Patrick Show, the things that he's guessing was too woke was the things I mentioned before about Israel Gutierrez, Mina Kimes, Kalishaw, and those things. And it was no longer about sports. It was more about the personalities on the show, and it was becoming too woke. So Reality said he's been trying to get his contract done with ESPN for over a year, extended for over a year now, and they kept saying no, 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 no. And his contract is up in August, and they just canceled his show. So the writing's kind of been on the wall, and Reality is saying the only thing he could get an answer from the bigwigs or whatever they call Dan and them called it was 2 words: too woke, too woke. That's all he got back. So I'm not saying I agree, disagree, or know anything about it. I'm just saying Tony Reality was on the show. That show's 3 hours a day, and they talk sports all day. And literally hour 3 was only Tony Reality and talking about the show. And Dan Patrick was like, that's one of my favorite shows. I literally don't miss a week or whatever. He was like, he came former from ESPN with Keith Olbermann and Rich Eisen. So he's like, oh, it's my favorite show. It's the only thing I watch on ESPN. Or whatever. So it was like a big deal. And yeah, so like, I guess what I'm mumbling on and on about is they're not really sure why it was. The other thing ESPN, Tony Reality said was the bigwigs wanted to push to removing 2 or 3, only have one of like Israel goes to Kalishaw, one of those guys on a week. And then the other 3 spots, the video spots, are for like current athletes. So like put on the Kelsey brother or put on Travis Hunter for a show. Put on Lil Wayne for a show, which they experimented on for a little bit, and then they pulled away with it and made it back to just the talking hairdos or whatever. Who, what I mean, like, all those guys like Woody Page. So apparently, what they wanted was not aligning with what the big execs, the big wigs, or whatever they call them, and that's why they didn't renew it. But there's no reason why it shouldn't have been renewed if they could have just met and agreed on stuff. But neither side wanted to budge.
I don't know, Mitch. That whole theory sounds a little too woke for me.
It could be, but listen to hour 3.
If I jump in here, I'm gonna upset some of the snowflakes, and they're not the snowflakes you think. The biggest snowflakes of all are the ones on the right, not the left. So, because they're the ones that get it up in their craw about this whole wokeness thing. If you don't like someone's opinion, stop listening to them. That's your prerogative. They're not shoving it down your throat. You're shoving it down your own throat. Get over yourself. So I don't want to go down a political route with me a sports show.
We don't have to go down the road. The last thing I'll say was Tony Reality, because he was working on his own contract and he was shocked that he wasn't getting the contract extension. So he hired his own private people, I think he said at CBS, NBC, and other networks to check in on the ratings, because the ratings are public or whatever for execs across any network, is what he was saying. So he had to ask execs in different networks what were the reported ratings of his show. And apparently it was still one of the top shows out there. So they canceled a show that still had one of the top 2 or 3 ratings wise, and it was a daytime slot. The other ones that had higher ratings were like the 5 o'clock and the 8 o'clock slot, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock our time. So it's really fascinating story, and the show's been on for 23 years. You don't have a show.
It's wild. I mean, to be on for 23 years and still do good ratings, but I mean, it's insane. I do get the management standpoint, because like when you have a show that's been successful for 23 years, there's a lot of pressure coming from the creative side of things. Hey, let's change things up, make things different. And yes, sometimes you do have to make changes to bring in a new audience. Because as I mentioned, I used to watch Around the Horn every day. I very rarely watch it now. I watch a lot of McAfee, as you mentioned. I have that on the background during work. And so as a result, sometimes I catch parts of Around the Horn. But I used to actually watch the show every day, and I don't anymore. So you do lose your audience if you don't change things up. But also, your core audience that's been with you for 23 years, if you change it too much, that's who you're going to lose. So managers probably said, hey, you're still doing good ratings. We don't want you to change things. Like, me personally, you're getting rid of the mute button idea. I think it's a terrible idea, right? So, like, I know I wouldn't have liked that had I still been a regular watcher of the show. I'm not. I understand I'm not the target audience, but I'm saying, like, if there's enough of the core audience that still like the show, they might have been upset by those kind of changes. The management might have, hey, we don't want to make these changes. And so I can see where they might, have to part ways. I mean, at some point, people are going to want different things. So I don't know what really happened. Everyone's got their own story on sides, but at the end of the day, it was a great show for 23 years, and we'll see what ESPN comes up with next, because they had some bangers over the years, and that was one of the ones that stuck around for a while. They had some other good shows that have been canceled and didn't last that long. That show's been around for forever. That PTI have been kind of the mainstays of daytime
That's what
television.
That's what he's.
Yeah,
That's what he's.
dude,
That's what he's saying.
around the horn leading into Pardon the Interruption was just like an epic string of shows. I would watch that and then like late night Sports Center nonstop. I don't really tune into ESPN anymore. I hasn't been my favorite. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like all I used to watch, and now with access to like the whole world, I just don't watch it as much anymore.
So
But man, Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption are. It's weird to think that people aren't going to have those shows.
yeah, I think PTI is on its way out as well. It's just being kept under wraps, and they literally, Tony Reality's words on the show, not mine. They are going to replace that time slot with the exact opposite show of PTI. So that would be like probably McAfee show, or basically like a podcast show that's moving on type of thing. So I think it's just kind of, I don't know, like what if you were brought in as an ESPN management and you're like, I got to make some changes around here to put my stamp on the network, and Around the Horn is gonna, I don't know, it just seems a little weird.
And I'm going to give you the honest answer. If I get brought in as an ESPN top-level executive, I don't care if I screw the pooch entirely because I'm making bank. It doesn't matter. They could fire me after the first week, and it don't matter because I'm still cashing in checks for a decade. You know what I'm saying? So, some people are like that. Some people have some people are smart. They come in like, we're not going to change anything, and other people are just, Perfect example. So Bob Iger, the guy who ran Disney for a while, the movie side of things. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything was going great, and then he stepped down. The new guy came in. And the MCU started to tank. They were getting rid of Spider-Man. They ended up bringing Bob Iger back because it took such a nosedive because the new guy came in and wanted to change things, and people didn't like that, right? So sometimes, when you have a gravy train, you ride it as long as you can. Let's move on. I just wanted to bring that up as my one, to start it off with, because it was such an influential sports show. And I mean, even pretty much all podcasts had that format. Now, I'm not saying that didn't start that format, obviously, but it's that's the podcast format. It's like, me as the host, I ask the question, and you two guys answer it, and then I chime back in, just kind of like reality is. Like the format of our show is very similar to what they do. We don't have a mute button or point scorers, but we do something very similar to what they do.
Muted that group. Mute.
We don't have a mute button.
For those who can't see what just happened.
Who muted him?
For those who can't see what just happened, our executive producer, Vinny the Gooch Santucci, just muted me in the middle of that sentence. So now we really are the newest iteration of Around the Horn. Well,
how do you mute people in here? Oh, you have that control?
If we had a point system, that's like minus 10. Minus 10.
God's muted.
Bump.
Okay.
You were like, when you said like the no mute button, I was like, oh my God, I gotta do it. Gotta do it.
And Mitch, you think PTI is probably on its way out too? I mean, yeah, definitely a chance. I mean, when you change programming, you kind of make big sweeping changes. Plus, those two guys are just ancient. I mean, and that's not negative. I'm not knocking someone for being old. Just they are much more older personalities and make a lot more money. You can make a new show with newer, younger talent that will cost you a lot less, and that looks good to companies when things cost you a lot less. So, the tenure used to be once you were there for a long time, you were safe. No, now once you're out for a long time, means you got to go soon because the forced retirement, because we don't pay that much. So, anyway.
Honestly, I just had to Google whether or not Kornheiser and Wilbon were still running it, because that to me is the most impressive. Like, Kornheiser looked old when I used to watch this on repeat in 2005. So, crazy to think 20 years later he's still rolling out day in and day out.
And for a little bit in there, he was given Monday Night Football. Don't forget.
Yeah. Dude, it was epic. I just loved all those shows. I loved PTI. Where PTI would get you is it would like that little freaking rundown tracker on the far right, and you would see that one topic that you wanted to hear them debate, and next thing you know, you're hooked for the entire episode just trying to hit that one topic, and you're like, oh, dang it. So, all right, yeah. I hope it stays.
One thing I forever love Around the Horn PTI is someone who works in the industry, and I didn't always work at live venue events. A lot of times throughout the years, I had to work at like just an average sports bar. And if you ever got a day shift or, the evening shift, which is basically you're cut by like 9 p.m. for the closers to come in, having that show around on with the people at work just made work so much easier because then you and your customers just literally continued the conversation of what around the horn. And then the horn would happen and then everyone would stare back at the TV. We wouldn't even really listen to the other analysts' opinions. It would just be like, once we got the question, then we all talked and then moved on. So that show will always have a special place in my heart, regardless.
Yeah, for sure. All right, boys. So that was my big topic to start off with. Is there any specific topics that are hot buttons for you? I just brought it up. This is today. It happened to be the last day, but
I have one. I don't know.
I have one as well, but I'll let Mitch go because it might be
Go
the
for
same.
it. No, I doubt it's the same. Unless go for it.
Well, since I'm such an Eagles fan now, Mitch Black was adamant a couple months ago that the NFL was paving the way for the tush push ban to pass, and that they threw the Packers out onto the coals.
They did.
As kind of the sacrificial lamb, and it doesn't pass.
No,
the
it barely
push
did it.
Stays.
Yeah,
so
the
it
push stays.
Yeah,
apparently there's like a last hour thing where the Eagles brought in the Kelsey brother who like went in front of the owners and like apparently cried in front of all the owners a couple hours ago about the sanctity of football or something like that. And apparently he changed a couple votes because these owners, it's exactly what I said a couple weeks ago on the podcast. They don't just bring this and randomly know how all the owners are going to vote. Like the big guys like Kraft and Jones, they've already called up all the owners, which is only like 31 other ones. And you're like, hey, how are you voting? Hey, how are you voting? You get like a template or a census of how you think the vote's going to go. And they figured out, oh, the vote's going to go bad against us. So we're going to shelf this because they've already had owners players meetings like a month ago. This is the follow-up version. This is the follow-up version where it has to go through, I forget, I was reading, it has to go through like referees. It has to go through management. It has to go through front office. The owners is the last part of the vote. And they thought, oh, we were going to win. By the way, it needs 25, over 24. So 25 out of 32 votes. And I think it was 22. So 2 or 3 owners must have changed their mind last minute, not telling Jerry Jones or Robert Kraft or whoever's against it. And that wasn't me. The head coach of Green Bay literally said that himself. He said, we got nudged to put this out there and we're getting crucified now because it came public. So all of that ended up being real. It's just 2 votes late, 2 votes short. That's it. 2 votes short.
Well, yeah, I got to throw this back to Round Horn real fast because me as the reality of the show, I have to give the stats first, then you guys can debate it. So for those who don't know, the tush push, everyone knows what that move is. I'm not going to talk about what that is. Pushing someone from behind was banned in football up until 2005. For whatever reason, they unbanned it in 2005, and then it took 20 years before someone's like, hey, maybe we can abuse this play. Like, what happened between 2005 and, like, 2022 when this play started, becoming, a prominent thing? Like, people just didn't realize it was unbanned. Now, all of a sudden, it's a problem. And, now that it's a problem, you needed a 2/3 majority. You needed 24 votes. They only got 22. So, 12 teams kind of stood strong and held off the rest, basically. But anyway, now you guys can jump back in and go on. So, or 10 teams rather. Sorry.
I was just going to, I have the list of teams that voted against the ban. So we
please.
have, it's 7 AFC teams and 3 NFC teams. But it's the Eagles, Ravens, Browns, Lions, Jaguars, Dolphins, Patriots, Saints, Jets, Titans. Which I think is a pretty interesting
line. Those teams suck.
Well, the Lions and Ravens vote to me is pretty interesting, though. Just, like the Lions, obviously the Eagles are a direct competition for them. And then Ravens, I mean, I think, with Lamar Jackson, there's a lot here that is just kind of interesting. Like I was kind of thinking about it and I was like, I mean, shoot, the Dolphins for sure want to ban it because Tua's dying on a tush push. Like Tua's not making it out of that pile.
For real.
Like the Ravens aren't running a tush push. The Browns have 5 quarterbacks, so I guess they could run it as much as they want.
Who are the NFC teams? Vinny, you said it was Eagles, Lions, and who?
Saints.
Okay, so that's the interesting thing to me, right? It's because, like, I mean, obviously the Eagles make sense, but like, if you're in the NFC, why are you, like, that move's got to be brutal, because like the team that just won the Super Bowl is the best in the league at it, and you're voting to let them keep it. That's a bold strategy. Whereas the AFC makes a little more sense. It doesn't affect you as much. The Bills run it, but not nearly as well. Some of those teams on the list, like you mentioned, like they're traditionally running football teams: Browns, Jets, Ravens. So like I get it. They're teams that run the ball. They want to keep things in play that help their offense running the ball. Whereas a team like the Saints that quite frankly can't do anything on offense and certainly can't run the football. At the same time, they'll run the ball for a decade. Even Alvin Kamara at the best was as a receiving back out of the backfield, not as a runner. They haven't run the ball since Mark Ingram was there, and that's been a minute.
I look for fantasy value wherever I can. That's kind of my shtick, right? If you guys want to be revisionist, by all means, but I remember how it was, so you can't change my mind on this one. Let's rewind to around this time last year, maybe a couple months from now, this time last year. I had Chris and Austin at my house when we drafted, and I literally had them and Vinny, and I'm not exactly sure with Alex, I won't put you on the record, say, I don't like Barkley because of what Hurts is going to take away from Barkley. There's no way Barkley can be a top 5, top 6 pick with Hurts in that offensive system there. I said to you guys, Kellen Moore left the Eagles and went to, where'd he go? The Cowboys? No, he left the Cowboys.
Saints.
He left the Saints. He left and went to the Saints. I was like, new offensive play caller. And by the way, if you have a different running back, not Miles Sanders, or who did they have the small guy? DeAndre Swift or whatever. Like if you actually have a big back, maybe a good offensive play caller will call to the personnel you have. Hey, I've got DeAndre Swift, not going to stuff it on the goal line. Hey, we've got Barkley, we might stuff it. And no joke, you guys can call BS all you want. Saquon Barkley in a lot of leagues, especially PPR, dropped to the turn of the second round. I can show you leagues where he was drafted first, second, or third pick in the second round. That's how far he dropped, and I had him 3rd overall. So if there's any type of news that's willing for people to overlook Barkley again, I'm all for it. So I'm voting for the tush push because everyone's going to come around and they're going to have short-term memories and they're going to be like, oh, Barkley, look at how many runs he had to do from outside the 10. I know this is going to be the narrative over the summer. He ran so many runs that were 20, 30, 40 yards to get those TDs. Anytime they get in the 5, Ertz is just going to take it. I can't wait for people to start passing on Barkley again and put like Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs or even King Henry ahead of Barkley this coming up draft again because he'll just fall to me again and I'm going to be happy. Thank you.
Well,
if they got rid of the tush
I'm going
push,
to jump in and defend myself a little bit on that take.
I didn't include you, Alex. I didn't include you.
Didn't, look, this is a show. Well, maybe the show's not about honesty, but I'm about honesty. And yes, I did say that he wasn't at the top of my running back board. Now, I didn't say I didn't like him. I said he wasn't at the top of my running back board.
First rounder.
And the reason that he wasn't is because I was concerned about how many touchdowns that Hurts might steal from him. Obviously, that was a terrible take. But in my defense, my take was even worse than that because I drafted a wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. But I did, and I don't know if you remember this, but I told you if I hadn't gone CeeDee Lamb, I would have taken Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had 1,900 rushing yards. So yes, 1,900 is less than 2,000, but I don't feel like I was that off on the running back that I was targeting in my defense.
I didn't include you. I include more of Matt Black, Austin, Weeze, Chris Lee. Those guys were at my house. And we're like, why would you do that? Shocking, Mitch, that you would take him. You're usually Austin said to me, Gus Edwards is a Mitch pick. Saquon Barkley is not. Quote unquote. That's what Austin said to me in my face, in my room. After Gus Edwards, we were like round 6 or whatever. And he goes, Gus Edwards is a total Mitch pick. Barkley is not. I was like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So anything that'll push value down on these players, I'm all for. So I would have been there voting with the Eagles. Yeah, tush push, tush push.
I mean, I will say this. My hot take is I would probably rank Saquon the same as I did last year.
No. I knew this was going to happen. He's not going to catch enough receptions. He's not going to be enough in the goal line packages. He's not going to have they moved on from that offensive line? Is Hurts still there? It's the same play caller as last year. Did Barkley have any injuries? Like, how is he not the clear-cut number one?
I just think Saquon's a walking time bomb. Like, I mean, his history. I mean, listen, he's all the talent in the world. It's just, I don't know. I just think of like if I draft Saquon 1-1, which by last year's definitions he deserves to be the number 1 pick in fantasy. You could be a Chris. And Chris, by all means, McCaffrey deserves and has earned being the number 1 pick. And And then when he goes down, it's tough. It's tough. Look, historically speaking, if you have the first overall pick in fantasy and you take a running back and they go down in injury, I bet we could look at it. I guarantee you all those teams have sucked. I don't think there's a single one that's rebounded. And I could say like top three picks, because I know there was one year where I think I had Priest Holmes and drafted him like second overall, and it was like an instant,
If Vinny, if I sorry to cut you off, go on. Sorry.
No, you're good.
If you don't look it up, if you had to guess right now, Saquon Barkley's age for the full season next year, not like he's turning this in the summer or whatever, he will be this age for the full season next year. What would you guess?
I think he's 27.
Alex?
Is that right?
Who we talking about? Saquon?
Saquon, if I told you he's going to be this age for the full year, not like, in August he turns 32. What would you guess?
21, he's on his rookie deal. I'd say, 26, 27, 26. I'm going to 26.
Yeah, he will turn 28, or he just turned 28 in February or March or whatever, and he's going to be 28 for the whole season. Now, if I had to ask you a question, if for the whole season this year, not like he's going to, same question, how old is Christian McCaffrey?
He turned 30 this year, 29 turning 30, 28 turning 29.
28 turning 29. He'll be 29 in a month. So the whole season, he'll be 29. June 7th is, I just looked it up. Not like I know Christian McCaffrey's birthday. So he'll be 29 for the full year. And Saquon's 28. What drop, okay, let me put it this way. It's the draft. I'm not saying where in the draft we're drafting. It's your pick. And Christian McCaffrey and Barkley are both there. Who are you taking? Okay, let me make it better. Christian McCaffrey, Barkley.
You asked a question, give us 3 seconds to answer, man. Okay, so ask
I'm
the question.
excited. I apologize. Okay, so I'll give you 4 running backs. Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. It's your pick. All 4 are there. Who are you taking?
Oh, it's brutal. It's our league.
It's our league.
Sorry, who were the 3 again?
Get 4. Sorry, I added a 4th because I got too excited.
Okay.
Bijan, Jahmyr, Saquon, Christian.
Oh, Saquon. I can't trust CMC after last year.
Yeah, I'm not taking CMC. I would probably make a last minute decision that would be wrong and take Gibbs. I'd probably pull like the Darren McFadden over Adrian Peterson like back in 2007 where he ran for 2,000 yards on your team instead of mine. Because I was like, Run DMC's got all the hype in the world. He could be the best running back ever. And then, he was like RB20.
I think you left me CJ2K or whatever. Or Peterson, sorry.
No, you took Adrian Peterson. And I passed it again on. I think I passed on him in the second round too. So yeah. But dude, I don't know. It's really tough. Like I don't have like a justification for it. I'm definitely not taking McCaffrey. McCaffrey might be this year's Saquon though. Like it's very possible, but I'm for sure not taking him this year. It's just one of those things where it's I don't know. I have to look at Saquon's injury history to even see if I have a leg to stand on. Like how many games he plays on average per year.
Okay, I'll do one more. Tell me when to stop. So like when you say stop is where you put in Christian McCaffrey. Does that make sense?
Oof. Okay. Now we're talking CMC. I think that's even harder to evaluate than last year's Saquon, truthfully. But let's go.
Tell me when to stop, Alex. Saquon? Bijan.
So what are we doing? Why am I stopping you?
So you're going to stop me when you think CMC is better than this player. I'm reading you the ranks for 2025 off of Fantasy Pros going into next season. So they might include a lot of PPR stuff, but I'm just going to do it because CBS doesn't really have an updated one right now. So I'm going to read you the top 1 through whatever, and then you're going to tell me when to stop, like you would take McCaffrey over that player I just named. Does that make sense? Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Ashton Genty, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane.
Now.
Yeah, definitely A-Chain. I said Genty because I was a Raider fan. I can't get my hopes up, but it'd be A-Chain.
So ahead of Kyron Williams, James Cook, Chase Brown, Breece
Whoa,
Hall.
Kyron's above. Kyron's above
I'm
A-Chain.
going. You said once you get to a player, I take him above. I would take Kyron Williams above Devon A-Chain, right? So that's not like that's.
Okay, so let's take out A-Chain. Let's go Kyron Williams, James Cook.
I'm taking him over Cook.
I take him over Cook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Taking him over Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're taking Christian McCaffrey over Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think I've got him at like
he's
8 or
15.
9.
Yeah.
No, that's.
I mean, he's going to be the typical value pick, right? He's going to be the guy that he is going to fall, and you're going to get him later than he should. You're either going to get him later than he should go, and he's going to have a season where he's a top 5 fantasy running back, but you took him as a top 10 running back, and you get great value, or he is just going to be old and decrepit and fall apart, and you're going to waste the first round pick on him. So it's like, who's going to? Because like it is one of those high risk, high reward picks. He's either going to be a home. He's not going to be just a solid 1,300 yards.
You're going to lose it or win it in the first round.
He's going to either win you your league or he's going to lose your league. And
so basically, he's going to go to Adam at 10 overall.
Yeah, I think he's going to be like the Cooper Kupp over the last couple of years. Like, you're like, oh, dude, this dude literally set records the last time he was healthy, and you draft him, and he's like mid, and you're like, oh, why is he falling this year again? And you draft him, and he's like below mid, and he's like, oh my God, Cooper Kupp's there in the 6th round. You draft him, and he's like straight butthole.
Maybe.
So, I think that's a more likely scenario than McCaffrey. Than you draft him and he's Saquon. By the way, updated on Saquon's games played per year. If just off the top of your head, how many seasons do you think Saquon has played less than 12 games?
2.
He's been in the league for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many years less than 12 games?
I think it's 2, and I think I had him 1 year.
In the
And
league for 7 years, so at least 3.
I'm going to read these to you. 16, 13, 2, 13, 16, 14, 16. Consider myself shocked that he had actually played that many games.
That's still significant. Like, so there were multiple, one season he missed the whole season, but the other season where he missed multiple games like that,
like a quarter of the game.
In a fantasy season, when you're taking this guy as your number 1 overall pick, having a guy who misses 3 to 4 games. I mean, I lost Mike Evans for half the season, and I missed the playoffs by 1 game, right? Like, I'm not going to go do the math. Like, I made some other mistakes, but it's like I missed fantasy playoffs by 1 game, and I lost Mike Evans for 5 weeks. Like, if just one of the, or maybe 4 weeks, or it was like 4 or 5 weeks, like just one of those weeks he plays and I win, my whole season's different. I'm in the playoffs, right? So like, because and that's not a guy taking the first round, taking him like the 3rd or whatever, but still it's like, and this is a guy taking the first round, it's going to be more impactful.
Right. Then on the flip side, you have Derrick Henry, 15, 16, 16, 15, 16, 8, 16, 17, 17. Dude,
Well, and that was the next point.
Dude's a freaking animal.
So the one counterpoint that I will make is when you look at let's look at the last 3 guys who had a 2,000-yard season. Those 3 guys are Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry, and CJ2K. The next year, Chris Johnson had 1,300 yards, Peterson had 1,200 yards, and Henry only had 900 yards. Now, that was the year he got hurt, but the point is, they don't stay at the high level because the body has to recover, right? Even the freak of nature that is Derrick Henry, even his body couldn't take it. Now, granted, I will say he was on pace for 1,800 before he got hurt. So I will say that is insane. But, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right? And I'm not saying those are bad seasons. They're not. But I'm saying if you draft a guy wanting him to be a 2,000-yard rusher, and he's only a 1,200-yard rusher, that's a big difference, right? So
yeah, actually, it's a huge difference.
You can't go in if people go into the season. Like, I'm not saying to undervalue him, but I am saying if you go into the season being like, yo, he's going to rush for 2K again, they got the same roster, they're running it back, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Dude, that reminds me, I actually did that. I did that a few, in our league. I think we all did it. Like, Amon Green ran for 1,900 yards. You draft him as a 1,900-yard running back, and I think he went for 1,100 or 12. All I know is he was not worthy of the number 1 pick or number 2 pick that year after he ran for 1,900. So, I think people need to taper their expectations. Like, you're probably not going to get 2,500-yard all-purpose Saquon. You might get a dip, no matter how good the Eagles are.
I'm not even saying he's not going to be the number 1 running back, because he might be. He may very well be the number 1 running back, but I also think and entirely possible that he goes out there and he has 1,100 yards and has another one of his typical injuries that makes him miss a couple of weeks. And there's a value player out there, like a Genty who's a rookie, or a Derrick Henry who's a million years old, or Joe Mixon, who people thought would fall off late because he's so old, and honestly, he didn't really. Like, there's a value pick out there somewhere that might outshine him this next season. So I think if people go in thinking like, oh, it's going to be him, that you're selling. Like, I get that you're going to be hyped about him, Mitch. I'm just saying, like, if you go into this thinking like, oh, I'm going to get Saquon and it's going to be the number one RB, like, his history says that doesn't happen.
Sure, he might not be number RB1, but I would be interested in knowing. Look at the running backs that were taken just last year alone. Like Breece Hall was, oh my gosh, should he be number one pick? And now he's dropped all the way to like 19th overall running back. We're drafting guys like Bucky Irving and Chase Brown ahead of him this year. Like Breece, yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying, like,
where's that fan?
So yeah, no, I think it's just like a. And the other thing that's interesting to me is like the Christian McCaffrey one. The one that hurts me the most is like all these stud running backs have their buys like weeks 5 through 9. Christian McCaffrey has his bye week 14. I do not want my star running back divisional round. You almost always have to win 2 of those 3 divisional games. It's really tough to have a week 14 bye, 15 bye running back. It's so tough. So that'd be my only knock on Christian McCaffrey, but. Hey, if Barkley and McCaffrey want to fall in our draft, please.
I'm not saying they're going to fall. I'm just saying, like, I don't want to be on the record saying, oh, this guy's going to be amazing, and like just not talk about history. Like I said, I'm the reality of the show. I got to bring stats in the show. All right, we talked about the tush push, other news from the NFL, owners meeting that had some impact. 2 things. One is the Lions withdrew their proposal to change the playoff format, which I'm glad they did. I look, as much as it was kind of BS when the Saints. Who was it? Was it the Saints went 7-9 and hosted the playoff game against the Seahawks, or no, other way around maybe. I think the Seahawks were 7-9. They got to host the playoff game against the Saints, who were the wild card at 13-3. Like, I totally agree that that's a joke, but you only get to play who's in front of you, and if you want the home playoff game, win your division, right? You play everyone in your division twice. Okay. If you want the home game, you go out there and own it, right? You got to beat who's in front of you. So I like division formats. There's a lot of fantasy leagues that don't have division formats. For example, it's just highest point scorer or most. Like some have head-to-head where it's like most wins. Some are just straight highest point scorer. And I get it. I get that statistically, the person with the most points scored in the season had the best team and they should win. I get that, but that's not fun. Like, you gotta earn it. You gotta go and beat. And there's no trash talk there. Like, I gotta go and beat you. If I want to, like, if Mitch gets to talk shit to Vinny because he beat Vinny, it doesn't matter who had more points on the season or who had the better team overall.
I did.
Mitch won.
I did.
But that's not the point. The point I'm saying is like, it doesn't matter. Like, if an underdog, like, it wouldn't matter if the stats were the other way because Mitch won. Like, that's the fun of it. That's look, if the Lions want home field, they need to win, and they did in their defense. And anyway, if they were to do that, so that one's not a big deal. The other one that is kind of interesting is flag
Wait,
football.
Alex, did they pass it? I apologize. Did they pass that one?
No, the Lions withdrew the proposal for the vote.
Good. All right.
And here's the thing. I hate some of these proposals like that because it's so. But then again, the playoff system is a big proposal. I don't hate that because I look at what the Lions are talking about coming out of the NFC North with the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers. If the Bears are good, and I know like just the fact that they passed that proposal is pretty interesting. Just given the Vikings are the ones that kind of got screwed by it by having to go and play the Rams on the road. It's just an interesting thing because like some of these divisions are so strong, and I know that you have to play the schedule in front of you. I get that.
That's my point.
But I understand that, but like not every division is the NFC South or the AFC South, and sometimes you have to play 7 games against playoff teams, and that's difficult. Like look at and I'm not a Cowboy fan, I'm not a Cowboy stan at all, but have you seen like they set a record for having to play the most games in a row with teams that like had like 12 wins or more? I think they have like 6 games in a row playing teams with 12 wins or more to end their season.
Right,
and it's like. Certain times like this, unless the NFL can figure out the strength of schedule problem, I'm all for reseeding. And maybe it's not drastic. Maybe there's some caveats to it. But by no means should the AFC South champion at 7-9 be hosting like
they should though
a 12-5 5 Chargers team
No,
that
they
lost
should.
to the Chiefs.
No, they should. It should absolutely be that way because the problem is you only play 16, 17 games a year, so not everyone gets to play everyone. So what happens is you end up being scheduled to a division. Look at the Commanders and Cowboys this year. Everyone in that division, they're out of schedule, out of conference games, just the way it lines up, and they rotate it every 4 years. They have to play the NFC North and the AFC West this year. So they're going to have to play that stacked Vikings division, Packers, whatever, Bears and Lions. And then they have to play the Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. Those are their 2 out of divisions. So that division is going to take a lot more L's than another division. So you're not playing the same team. So until you figure out how to play the same teams, you got to just win your division. And that makes me happy. I don't think they should change
that. That's what I was going to say too, Mitch. That's why division matters so much because everyone in the conference doesn't play the same teams. Everyone in the division plays all but it used to be all but 2, now it's all but 3. And I know there's breaking news on the screen. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, yes, the Cowboys have a horrendous schedule this season, but that means that so do the Commanders, so do Eagles, so do I was going to say Redskins. I've already said the Commanders. So do the Eagles, so do the Giants, and the Cowboys just look worse because they're happy to be playing the Commanders and the Eagles, who had great records. But yeah, you win your division, win out. I got to cover this because it just popped up. ESPN just reported Colts owner and CEO Jim Irsay has died. So condolences to his family. He's one of the owners. I don't know. I didn't read the article. I guess I clicked on it for us. I don't know if that was something that was expected or coming or what. They just said he's passed away. Looked like peacefully in his sleep. Maybe something they were something, I guess. But yeah, so Colts owner just
Well, it's interesting. Well, it's interesting to me because he had a couple drug-related ODs in the last 5 to 10 years.
Over the last few years, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird, or not weird, but yeah, I'm reading right now. Sorry, they're not saying.
Yeah, and they wouldn't. I just the breaking news popped up on the screen while we were talking, so I felt that I should mention it. Anyway. Back then,
condolences to the Irsay family.
But yeah, that's why I think winning the division is important. And to Vinny's point, it is interesting that the Lions were the one who put forth the proposal when they're the ones who got the home field, and it was the Vikings who got kind of hosed. But it's because the Lions are in that division with the Vikings, with the Packers, and there's another team in that division that don't really matter. So they know that it may just because it happened to the Vikings last year, it might happen to them this year. So I think that's why they were willing to propose it, because they know they're in a tough division right now, and so they might be the one dealing with this moving forward. But yeah. Anyway, so that is the big NFL news. We kind of touched on this last time. Trey Anderson of the Bengals saying he's not going to play on his current contract. Nothing really new as well out there. Any other NFL news before we rotate to other sports?
Oh, I don't know how much you guys talked about Purdy last week.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I forgot about that. So speaking of Mitch being wrong about his takes on our show, wrong about the Tush Push getting banned.
I'm right about like 98 out of 100 wild
things. You got to only have this because you set me up. But he's also wrong about his conspiracy theory that Aaron Rodgers is going to go coach or go play for the Niners and take Brock Purdy's spot. Well, Brock just got paid. Brock Purdy's, this is a true story, his game check for his first game under his new contract is going to be more than all of his checks combined leading up to this point. Sure. He's going to make more on his first game under the new contract, which is averaging $53 million a year, than he did the entirety of his first few seasons as a player being Mr. Irrelevant. So good for him. The man got paid. He deserved it. Yeah.
Okay, so 3,800 yards last year, over under this year, more or less?
Sorry, over under how many yards?
3,864 is what he threw last year.
That's tough because he has brand new offensive weapons, but he also didn't have CMC all year. So I'm going to, and he didn't have Ayuk all year. So I'm going to give the caveat, which again, on this caveat, if the players around him stay healthy, he goes over that number.
20 TDs he threw last year.
Way over that number.
And then 12 interceptions. That's good for that money.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet over on picks. Deebo was hurt part of the year. You got to understand, Deebo was hurt part of the year. Ayuk was out the entire year. Ricky Purcell literally was gunshot wound and missed part of the year. So he had to develop a rapport with him. Juwan Jennings is only healthy 5 minutes of every hour of the day. And then CMC didn't play all year. So like when you look at it that way, the fact that his number one wide receiver had some issues, his number two wide receiver was gone for the whole season. His number one running back was gone for the whole season. His number three wide receiver was gone for the rest of the season, and was a rookie, so he hadn't even had a chance to develop a rapport with him. Like, he's got a lot more time to reestablish a connection with Ayuk now that Ayuk's going to be back, develop his relationship with Ricky Purcell, now that Ricky Purcell is healthy. CMC will allegedly be back. Like, and they went and signed another receiver for $10 million, Marcus Robinson. Like, I'm not saying that's going to be a huge deal, but just like, I think he's got a lot the pieces around him, not that they're necessarily better pieces, but they're healthy pieces, and that's really important.
I'll say my 2 cents on this one. Like, he has like one good year and one okay year, and he gets $55 million. Like it's only been 3 years in the NFL. He has one good year of 4,000 yards and 30 TDs. His other 2 years were pedestrian. He was 16th and 19th in the league. I know that's still basically middle of the road, but like, I thought the NFL was a copycat league, and an NFL copycat league, you do not want to copy the Dolphins and the Jaguars overpaying average quarterbacks. Just move on.
Well, I will say to that, because I'm a stat guy, I got to comment on that. So in his 3 years in the league, 22, 23, 24, those are his 3 years in the league. If you only look at the games that he started over those 3 years, he is a top 5 quarterback in every category. Over that 3 year span, if you only look at games he's played, so like you can't count the first year we didn't play a lot of games, he's a top 5 quarterback in every category. He's been in the NFC Championship game twice and won one of them. So it's like, if I gave you those stats and didn't say the name Brock Purdy, I just said, hey Mitchell, there's a quarterback that over the last 3 years is a top 5 player in yards, completion percentage, and touchdowns, and he has taken his team to the NFC Championship game twice, you'd think he was worth $53 million, wouldn't you?
See, okay, you're right. Okay, let me
because it's the name Brock Purdy, and because of where he plays, and he was drafted as Mr. Relevant, and he plays for, a guy who becomes an offensive guru, you don't see him in that same light.
Well, I don't see him in that same light because you're right. Let's take away the name Brock Purdy and we'll just player X. If you just apply it to the formula for successful franchises in the last 5 to 7 years, if I read you the top paid QBs right now, there's only like 2 of them that made the playoffs and have been relevant the last 5 years. So it's like, you're right. Maybe he's earned it, but it's not the formula to build a championship team. That's my argument.
No, I will totally agree with you there. It's not the formula to build a winning team, but neither is going and signing Aaron Rodgers, which is what you're wackadoo.
For a year? For a year? I mean, you got Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant. You got to trust that you can go draft and put guys in your system and make them good. He made C.J. Beathard look good for a season. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's just counterintuitive to like that whole franchise and that whole system set up. Like, why did they move up and go get Trey Lance? The whole point is they wanted a new young quarterback that was locked in to a rookie contract. That was like the whole reason of getting Lance and moving up.
Purdy was the backup to Trey Lance. Like, let's keep that in mind. He just won the job. So, like, yes. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I totally understand that there is the logic of you get a quarterback on his rookie deal and that's how you win. But
yes,
the counter argument to that, and that is the best way, that is the easiest way to win, right? If you have a guy as talented as Brock Purdy,
look at the Commanders right now,
and then you can pay everyone else. That's the formula for winning. However, there are guys like Patrick Mahomes who is still out there winning after he got paid, right? Now,
Patrick Mahomes is 17th highest paid right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
like
16,
when he signed his deal, he was like top 3 still. Like, it wasn't number 1 money. He was still like a top 3 paid guy when he signed the deal. Just thought it would happen since then, and there's going to be a new different salary cap. But I agree with you that it's not necessarily the best formula for winning, but his stats say he earned it. It's still not the ridiculous number 1 money that other teams are getting. Like, I think he earned it, and I think the Niners are better with him than they would have been drafting any quarterback in the current draft class they could have gotten, or any free agent they could have gotten. So I think it was still the best move for the organization.
Dang, 53 million locked up for 5 years to Purdy is better than 1 year at 34 million with Rodgers. I don't know. That's tough for me to. That's tough for me to get on board
because
with.
there's the future involved, right? Like 1 year, but and again, you have Rodgers blinders on, right? Like the same.
Sure.
If the same thing, I don't, and I haven't done Rodgers stats, so I can't go and do that right now. I'm not gonna add them up because I haven't know these Purdy stats because like I've been looking at this week.
Sure.
But like, I would be willing to bet if I took the last 3 years worth of games of Aaron Rodgers, he would not be a top 10 quarterback.
Can I ask you a question? With Baker Mayfield's at 33, would you rather have Baker at 33 or Purdy at 55?
I'd rather have Baker at 33, but
Geno Smith is 33. Do you want or 36? Do you want Geno Smith or Purdy?
are you talking about how much they make or how old they are?
No, that's how much they making per year.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's making 53 this year.
I'd rather have Purdy.
Okay, so for 20 extra
Over
million?
Geno, I think he's a better player.
For 20 extra million though, because you know what 20 million a year does for a player
Right,
like
but
Chris
I
Jones.
I think he's a much better player, and there's the longevity factor. Like when you sign the right guy at QB, he's your quarterback for 15 plus years, right? When you get that guy,
Sure.
I think Brock Purdy has a chance to be that guy. I don't think Geno Smith has a chance to be that guy.
I think Brock Purdy's more along the lines of like Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Jared Goff. I don't know if he's going to be the guy for 15 years. He might be the guy for 5 years. Who would you rather have on this one? Sam Darnold, who just signed a contract this offseason for $32 million, or Purdy for 53?
I would rather have Purdy because he's a proven winner, whereas Darnold just did it 1 year.
Interesting. I would love to have some parallel universe where Sam Darnold was drafted in the 5th or 6th round
But
to the
like,
49ers.
the pieces matter, right? Like, so I'm sitting there on the team. Like, if you're talking just on the Niners, like with that coach, then sure, I'll take Darnold, right? Because it's cheaper, and I give a lot of credit to the coach of the Niners, right? Whereas
Sure.
I don't give that same credit to the coach.
I guess that's where my blinders are coming in more than Rodgers is I put huge, and you guys know this isn't BS. I put huge emphasis on play callers. I told Vinny like 4 or 5 years ago, I play this game every year, new face, same face, different place, new OC. So like anytime you have that OC weighing in on the factor, I'm a huge OC person. So maybe mine is just like, I'd rather have Darnold at 33 with Shanahan as opposed to Purdy at 55 with Shanahan. So maybe you're right. Maybe my blinders does come from not just the value of the player, but who they're paired as a coach with. Because like Bo Nix is going to be interesting when he gets re-signed. If he doesn't have that play caller, who I consider probably the best play caller, second best play caller of my generation, then yeah, I guess you're making me realize on air right now that I guess it's more of the OC on the team for me than the actual quarterback.
No, like I said, I understand what you're saying. I get your argument. I think Brock Purdy deserved to be paid. And I think the point of this was that the reason I would consider other quarterbacks with that play caller is based on their age, because the future matters. Like having a franchise guy for the future matters. As a Raider fan, we have not had a franchise QB, a guy that we knew would be our future outside of Derek Carr. And as Vinny talked about on the pod last week, after Derek Carr, you weren't here, but after Derek Carr got hurt, he was never the same. And like we've had 20 years of just no franchise caliber quarterback other than the few years of Derek Carr before he got hurt, right? And it's such a big difference to your organization. So signing an older player like Rodgers, who can't be your franchise guy simply because of age, like regardless of talent, that's problematic. Like sure, you might be a one and done, but like you're not necessarily trying to be a one and done. You're trying to build a franchise for the future. You need to have that guy. That guy's going to keep you relevant, because when you're always relevant, that's important. Look at the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Like they're always relevant. Like yeah, their teams are never great since the Rossberg era, but they're always relevant, and that matters, and that gets them ratings and numbers and brings them money. So I think having a franchise guy makes you always relevant, whereas if you went the route of Rodgers or Russ Wilson, or whoever you wanted to be like an older player, and they give you those 1 or 2 years, that might be great. You might have 1 or 2 successful years, but now you're starting over from scratch again. So.
Sure. That makes sense too. I guess if I were a GM, I would trust my play caller is part of the equation just as much as the QB. And I guess I would never pay someone 55. I guess that'd just be me. It's just crazy because if you look at a lot of these teams that are good, only the Bengals and Bills have like a top 10 paid QB. All the rest of the top 10 paid QBs are terrible teams. It's like Dak, Tua, Trevor, Jordan Love's not bad, and that team's not bad. I take it back. But Herbert and the Chargers are so up and down. Jared Goff and the Lions, that's a good team. I'll take it back. But then you got like Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones. It's just like,
Well, don't hate on Baker playmaker. Dude's put up numbers. But then I get it, right? I agree with you. But I also just want to point out that, Aaron Rodgers has just as many NFC titles as Rex Grossman. So let's just keep that clear, right? So I just want to, and Tom Brady, who only played in the NFC for 2 seasons. So let's just be clear. But anyway, let's move on. We wanted to discuss Brock. We discussed Brock. Vinny, are you still with us, or is he still doing stuff? Because he's been muted for a while.
He's probably doing something.
Oh, I was talking. I didn't realize I was muted.
Really?
My God.
You've been muted for quite. That's why we kept.
Well, you guys, I didn't really say much. The only thing I actually said was I chimed in and like during that and was like, oh, I 100% agree with Alex's take. I was working on something else based on a topic we were talking about earlier. But
was the topic around the horn on you to do this whole time? Bang, biscuit, got my revenge.
Bang. No. You can't. I'm not letting you take credit for that. I'm the only one that's muted somebody on this show today. No, I agree. I think what the short-sighted view that Mitch is looking at is naive to the fact that you've never had to root for a team that doesn't have a quarterback.
Yeah,
that's all these people do, like constantly, is try to find quarterbacks. Like it's why people trade up to draft quarterbacks that might not even be that good, a la Aaron Richardson, Trey Lance. Like they're not trying to necessarily fix their salary cap. They're trying to get somebody who they think is going to win, with the caveat that, yeah, that salary cap is really nice, but you want sustained success as much as possible. And you cannot do that in the NFL without a quarterback. So if you get somebody who you even think is an inkling good, you sign them to an extension. It's what the Raiders did with Carr, like we said. It's what all these teams do. It's what the Jaguars did with Trevor
isn't your
Lawrence.
ultimate goal? Your ultimate goal is not to find a QB. Your ultimate goal is to win championships.
Well, your ultimate goal is to make money.
I would disagree with that. I would say the ultimate goal is a championship, but the ultimate goal is just to be successful enough that you have people showing up to your games and watching you on TV. Like it's a business.
Yeah,
like you just can't be ass.
So Mitch, we have not discussed this, so this may backfire on me. But growing up, what was your favorite NFL team? I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking for the point I'm going to make. Growing up,
like when I'm a child, or like when I was actually like past the age of like 10.
No,
because it was 49ers, so I could play on the video game system and beat my brothers.
And why were you a fan of the 49ers?
Because they had the most stacked roster. That
right, the most stacked roster. And what did the 49ers have? They had franchise QB followed by franchise QB back to back. They were relevant. So someone like you, like the 49ers, who born and raised, grew up in the state of California, and someone like me, born and raised in the state of Alabama. If it was me as a kid. Hold on, let me finish my point. Was also cared about the San Francisco 49ers. Now, since we've since then moved on and found our own teams that we like for other reasons, but like, because they were relevant, because they were successful, they accrued fans who spent money. I have a Niners jersey. I bet you had some Niners jersey. I don't know how much, but I have that stuff. I have a Jerry Rice jersey from back in the day.
Yeah, they also had Jerry Rice, which isn't fair.
Right, but the point is, we spent money on their merch. We watched their product, right? And so did other people because they were good. You know who didn't have any fans? Growing up. Teams like the Seahawks, who were a trash can fire for so long, right? They didn't have any fans.
And then they ended up almost winning 2 Super Bowls.
Eventually, I'm talking about when they had Russell Wilson, when
they had a good quarterback.
Under a good quarterback who was getting paid $7 million. Russell Wilson during those years was getting paid $7, $8, $9 million. Once Russell Wilson got the huge contract, the Seahawks were no longer good ever again. And you could even mark those years up. Like, if I were growing up and I was liking a team like I did when I was 10 years old, it'd 100% be the Commanders. Look how stacked their roster is, and the only reason they can stack that roster is because they have a QB at $9 million. $9 million is Jaden Daniels is getting paid right now. You know what you can do with $40 extra million to your team? A hell of a lot. Look at Penix Jr. right
you're
now.
looking at it only through the lens of trying to win the Super Bowl.
True.
The point that Vinny and I are making is, A, you're not going to win a Super Bowl without a franchise quarterback, but B, sorry, I have to cough, but B, you aren't going to be relevant. As NFL owners and business owners, they care about relevance because your success brings in money. It makes you money off TV deals, off merchandise, off ticket sales. That matters to them much more so than having a young QB who happens to be good. Justin Herbert was a young QB who happened to be good.
For sure, they want primetime games. I get all that. I get that.
So.
Yeah, and if you're thinking of the ultimate goal, like the Rams moved off of Goff, who was wanting an extension, and paid Stafford a ton of money and won a Super Bowl.
No, but Stafford's getting paid.
Brady
30.
made a ton of money and won a Super Bowl. And
Vinny, that's not even close. Jared Goff wanted $55 million. That's why they ended up trading him before his extension. Stafford re-signed for $28.30. That's a difference of $25 million you can go pay. Do you know what Chris Jones costs you a year? Like considered the best defensive tackle, or like one of the best offensive linemen. You can go get the best defensive tackle in the league and the best offensive lineman in the league for an extra $30 million.
I don't think you're wrong. I just don't think the 49ers were willing to hit a reset button next year when they didn't have a quarterback. It's kind of like a competing interest where, like, I don't necessarily think your take is wrong. Like, I do think you need to be salary cap mindful. I think they paid Purdy way too much money personally. I don't think he's a $53 million quarterback, but I understand that they thought, hey, at least Purdy keeps us relevant, and we would rather be relevant than trying to build out this roster. Like they're still going to compete and still try to win games, assuming that Purdy is still the same guy and they're not giving $250 million to Kyler Murray. You know what I mean? Or Trevor Lawrence.
Why didn't the Vikings pay Darnold then?
Because they were smart.
But you're very close to winning a Super Bowl. You need a franchise QB to do it.
I'm not going to take that stance because I told you at the end of last season.
The Vikings had already hit the reset button. They had moved off of Kirk Cousins, and we talked that I'm not going to get into it, but like Kirk Cousins last season as a Viking prior to being injured, he was a top 5 quarterback, no question, full stop. Look at the stats. So they had already made the decision to hit the reset button after his injury, and they drafted a young rookie quarterback.
And look how good they did.
Hold on, and McCarthy, they believed it. McCarthy got hurt and couldn't play, so then they went with Darnold. They had already. They had already hit the reset button. They had already made the investment in McCarthy and draft capital, taking him highly, planning on this guy, and they believe in their coach. So they wanted to keep going with the plan they already set in motion. So the fact that Darnold happened to have worked out, they were willing to move on because they're not hitting the reset because they'd already hit it the year prior. The Vikings weren't, when they moved off of Darnold, they didn't have to go into this year thinking we have to get a guy in this draft. We're going to have to trade up because we won a bunch of games. We're going to have to trade up and draft QB highly and mortgage the future on this guy and then spend a year with him learning. No.
They did with McCarthy 2 years ago.
When they did it last year, we've already made that preparation. So I think it's a different scenario than the Niners who would have had.
Yeah, I agree.
How though? I don't agree because when they let go of Cousins, they have a top 5 QB that they didn't want to pay. They have a younger guy in, but the younger guy didn't pan out, and they brought in Darnold. So if you take that same logic, if the Niners let go of Brock Purdy, you could bring.
It's not that he didn't pan out; he was hurt. He never got to play. McCarthy didn't get beat out for the job; he was just injured.
Same difference. Let's pretend the Niners had some young player in the background, okay? And he gets hurt. So you don't have a QB just like the Vikings don't. They moved off of Cousins, went younger. Purdy, they'll move off of Purdy and go younger just for the sake of my argument. Then they brought in Darnold and almost went to a Super Bowl. So you're telling me the Niners for $20-something million left, $25 million less, couldn't bring in Darnold this offseason, move off of Purdy the same way they moved off of Cousins. They moved off of Cousins, went to Darnold, regardless with McCarthy as a roadblock in the middle. They went from Cousins to Darnold and almost won a Super Bowl.
Now they got bounced in the first round. They got bounced in the wild card round.
Oh, they were one of the best teams. The Rams.
You can't sit here and say that they. It's tough. Here's the thing: is like
they lost 2 games on the season, Vinny. 2 games.
It's not apples to apples though, because the Vikings, by some blessing, were considering moving off for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins ruptures his Achilles, so now they don't want to re-sign him, and go 7-10. So they have like a top 12 draft pick that now they have to work with. In your scenario, the 49ers move on from Purdy. They don't give him an extension. They sign Aaron Rodgers. They try to win a Super Bowl. You're not filling that gap with the 30th overall pick in the NFL draft. Like the Vikings had a perfect storm to move on for anybody.
Yeah, but you can fill it with Darnold, and then some people can argue the Niners roster going into last year. I know this year difference because we've seen it play out. The Niners had a bad year and the Vikings did good, but going into last year, you could argue the Niners had a much, much, much better roster than the Vikings, and they went off of Darnold, and so off of Cousins. If they would have re-signed Cousins, they'd be in so much trouble. They wouldn't have been able to give $30 million to Darnold, and they would have been forced to start an injured McCaffrey. But because they gave up $55 million, what did Cousins make? $48 million. They were able to go out and get a $30 million quarterback and save an extra $20 million for their team.
Right, but again,
$55 million is so much money.
Wait, after you were a Niners fan, who did you root for?
You have to understand that
the
player
Chargers,
ages,
for real.
player ages and health matters. Kirk Cousins was an older player coming off of a bad injury. That's a different scenario. The point that Vinny and I are making is that it is a different. The Niners were in a different scenario than the Vikings because the Vikings had already made that decision because of they had an older quarterback who was going to demand a lot more money, and he was coming off an injury, and they didn't want to take that risk, so they decided that, hey, we're going to reset, we're going to draft someone, and we're going to start over. They had already done that. Sam Darnold happened to work out, and so then they made the decision, no, we've already drafted this younger guy, we're going to keep going forward with that plan. Whether or not that's the correct choice, we don't know yet, right? We'll know in a year or two, seeing how Darnold does in Seattle and how they do with not McCaffrey, but McCarthy. We don't know yet, so we'll see how that pans out. But the point is that was a different scenario than the Niners, because the Niners moved off of Brock Purdy. They would have nothing. They would literally.
Do you know how the Niners built this team, though? Do you know who their QB was for the first 2 Super Bowls? Jimmy G, and he was getting paid $16 million, and they built this roster over 3 or 4 years.
NFL contracts 10 years ago to NFL contracts today. Like the salary cap is changing, and that's why.
So he would get paid 20 or something, 22 instead of 55, because it would go up 5 or 6, whatever the inflation is. But the point is, they built that roster around an average or below average QB. They went and thought the air replacement was Lance, just like the Vikings went and got McCarthy. It didn't work out. They drafted a better player in Purdy, and they made him the good player. My point is, if you can't is Purdy like the savior of your franchise, or did you guys make Purdy?
That would be the question. Obviously, they feel very strongly about keeping Purdy in this.
You're right. You're right. Obviously,
even if they made Purdy, the fact of the matter is, like I said, he's been a top over the past 3 years that he's played. He's been a top 5 quarterback.
He's been good.
Full stop. Sure. So why? If you're the 49ers and you don't. You got to understand, as a business decision, if you say, hey, we're not going to go out and sign a guy who's a top 5 quarterback, who's already on our team, who wants to play for us, who has the rapport with the coaches and the players, if we're not going to give that guy money and we're going to go and we're going to draft somebody and start over, or we're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers and start over, and that doesn't work, you're going to get killed. You're going to lose your job. Sure. A lot of you in the executive office, you're going to lose your job. Your franchise is going to be worse, and you might end up like the Raiders where you're irrelevant for 20 years.
Okay, so I guess my only thing is Darnold was god awful before this year, and I brought up the Darnold thing before, and you guys laughed at me. I was like, Darnold's going to be great. Why can't the system and the player go out and make the person regardless? So Darnold was terrible.
They can, but there are multiple things involved. Same with Geno Smith, right?
Baker was terrible till he went to the Bucs.
Right. And what they have in common, they played for the Jets. So that's a different crappy franchise.
He played for the Browns. He played for the Browns, but yeah.
Well, Geno and Sam Darnold both played for the Jets. So.
I meant Baker. Baker was terrible for the Browns.
He was, and he bounced. The Browns hadn't won a game in 2 years until Baker Mayfield.
Okay, he wasn't the Baker he is now.
The Browns not the Baker he is now. Was terrible.
Maybe he was. We gave him trash Jarvis Landry and trash OBJ.
Oh my God, that's that's the best wide receiver core ever.
If they had him 2 years prior.
But the point is, you don't need wide receivers if it's 55 million.
I told you can have Randy Moss on your fantasy team. You'd be really excited until I said you get to have Randy Moss on your fantasy team in 2024.
But if I'm paying Josh Allen $55 million, you don't need a $30 million wide receiver. Because your quarterback's so good, he'll make the wide receivers. So Baker couldn't make wide receivers and it's still arguable that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin could be the best duo in fantasy and wide receivers in football, going back to Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl with this team. He inherited a Super Bowl winning team with two of the best wide receivers, and he starts doing well. We argue so many times the system, the place, the coordinator matters so much, but then all of a sudden we go get a 6th-round QB, make him great. There aren't very many 6th-round QBs made great, but all of a sudden the 6th-round QB that we got is the savior instead of us making him that good. That's where my disconnect comes in. I'd rather go out and get... Yeah, sorry.
I want to go Tony Reale and get a little woke and say that Mitch has QB privilege. Because he went from Joe Montana to Steve Young to Jeff Garcia to Phillip Rivers to Aaron Rodgers. And you're basing this whole argument over the fact that just every team has a QB in waiting, and it doesn't work like that. It does not. The reality is it does not work like that. You can't compare the Vikings and the Niners because, like Alex has been trying to say, the Vikings already had somebody who they are handing the reins over to McCarthy, regardless of how well Darnold did.
Time out. Go back 2 years. They had Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was playing amazing, and they moved the mortgage to go up in the draft to get McCarthy.
Right, because of
they didn't have to because Cousins got hurt and they had a high draft pick.
No, 2 years ago. No, they moved up to draft him. They moved up to the 10th pick to draft McCarthy, and they gave up 2 first-round ones.
Mitch, if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, if Kirk Cousins plays out that season, again, we've had this stat argument. I believe he was third in. He was going to be third in yards and touchdowns on the season.
But 2 years ago, he didn't get hurt. He got hurt last year.
If he finished, what? No, he got hurt 2 years.
Last year, he got hurt. He got hurt in the Achilles last year.
That was 2 years ago.
The end of last year. But he was healthy going into when they drafted J.J. McCarthy.
No, he had just torn his ACL.
No, Mitch, you got your years wrong.
I mean, his Achilles.
So if Kirk Cousins had finished that season and didn't get hurt, and he stays on, he played 8 games, so we extrapolate over the next 8 games, we double his stats, he would have had 4,000 yards, 40 TDs. They would have signed him. They would have paid him. They moved on because he was an older guy. This is a guy who's going to be on his 3rd or 4th contract. Like, this is an older player coming off of a big-time injury. That's why they hit the reset button. There's a very different story that happens. You can't compare apples to apples. But we're just talking in circles. Clearly, Mitch disagrees. Mitch does not think the Niners should have re-signed Brock Purdy. Vinny and I do. Obviously, the Niners organization feel like they did. And like I said, as someone who's been a fan of a team for 20 years that hasn't had a franchise quarterback other than 3 of those years, I can honestly tell you the 3 years that Derek Carr was good were the only 3 years it's been fun to be a Raider fan for the last 20. So having a franchise quarterback really
the Niners.
And I just need to fact check this really quick. The Vikings had the 11th overall pick because Cousins got hurt. They traded up 1 spot to the Jets to get J.J. McCarthy. That's it. They traded picks 11, 129, 157 for picks 10 and 203. They did not give up 2 firsts. They didn't do anything crazy. They sucked because Cousins got hurt, and they went to like a 3rd and a 4th. So not even. Like a 4th and a 5th.
So all right, so the Niners have gone to 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years, basically, and they went with 2 different quarterbacks. If all of a sudden they start sucking over the next couple of years, then we'll know who was right or not. There cannot be another reason why they start sucking. If they suck this year and suck the next year, I do not want to hear excuses. Well, they don't have this player, they don't have that player, they don't have. Well, that's the problem when you have $55 million tied up to your QB, is you're going to have to let go of a lot of other players. So if they start sucking, if they go back to a Super Bowl or they're a good playoff team, then I'll eat my words. But if the last 5-6 years, this has been one of the best teams in the NFL, regardless of who their QB is, because they have the same play caller. Now all of a sudden we're going to pay Brock Purdy 55 and we have a couple average years. There has to be one or the other. So I just want to determine now if the Niners have a good couple of years.
Right?
Yeah, but then we don't get the rookie guy.
If Darnold in Seattle does really well and the Vikings suck with McCarthy, that also helps my Vinny's argument.
For sure. But I think the Vikings are so loaded, and they have probably the 2nd or 3rd best play caller in the league. I think I even said to you guys a couple months ago, is there a world where J.J. McCarthy is better than Darnold's the year last year? I think you guys remember me bringing that up. Well, so you're being consistent. You're being consistent, and I'm being consistent, and we'll see. That's all.
Yeah, we'll see.
But in this scenario, though, we don't get to roll it back with the 49ers with a rookie quarterback who they drafted at the 20th overall pick. So.
But they drafted him at the 6th round.
Let's move on, because neither of us are going to agree to change our minds now. Mitch is staunch in his belief that he does not believe that Brock Purdy deserved to have been paid. We believe that he should have been paid. There's no
we need to force Mitch to just be a Jets fan or a Giants fan at this point and just say, hey, live with yourself for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
and then tell me that you don't want to hang yourself by the end of it.
So
Well, if you're asking me personally,
we're going to move to a different sport because I'm going to get us off football because we're running out of time here. So let's.
sure.
Well, again,
I
it's not
enjoyed
far
that
now, so I'm not
conversation.
running out of time from that standpoint. But I know one of us has a wife who doesn't like him going over an hour with his friends. And
Watch Purdy throw for 50
We're at like an hour and a half, by the way.
We're about
I
15,
think
I'm aware.
I'm
aware.
There's a sliding scale here.
All right,
Watch Purdy throw for 50 TDs, and I'll be totally wrong, and I'll eat my words. I promise.
Let's talk hockey. So we talked hockey last time, Ben, how excited I was, how if you didn't have a rooting interest, you could have one in just cheering for the U.S. team versus the Canadian team, depending on which country you're from. But one of the things that happened, which kind of sucked, was like we were hyped about Game 7. There's going to be a Game 7, Florida Panthers versus Toronto Maple Leafs. USA versus Canada, defending champs versus a team that hasn't won since the 60s. It's going to be epic. Well, tight game. It's very tied. I got to go pee. I'm gone for 5 minutes. I come back, it's 3-0 Panthers. The game's over. While that was the team I wanted to win, talk about anticlimactic for a Game 7. I was so hyped for it, and during the 5 minutes that I was, peeing and getting a drink or whatever it was, I come back and it's 3-0. Game is over. Yeah.
I did the same thing, dude. I watched like the whole entire like first period, and then like the second period started, and all of a sudden I stopped watching to eat dinner, and then turned it back on, and it was like 3-0 or like 4-1, and I was like, oh, that escalated quickly. So yeah, but game six of the Dallas series, Dallas and Jets, was a great game.
Yeah, the Dallas game was great. That one, and that one's ironic too, right? Because we talked about how many goals had been scored, even though Hellebuck had been the best, goalie in the regular season for 2 years in a row. He had let in so many goals, and that's what's so exciting. And that game was 0-0. It was 0-0 going into overtime, which is still epic, by the way. It's like watching a no-no in baseball, right? Like both goalies playing out of their minds, not letting anything in. A game the game before was like 7-5, and now we got nothing going to OT. And then thankfully, for me as an American fan, the Stars win. Now there's 3 American teams left, only 1 Canadian team. It's got to suck for the AHL, though. It can't be great for ratings having the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Florida Panthers. 2 teams in the southeastern United States cannot be a great draw.
When is Florida going to be recognized as the hockey powerhouse that it is?
I mean,
I know. They went from like the Lightning to the Panthers.
I've been enjoying these playoffs because hockey is one of the few things that I don't have any type of vested interest in. I can just watch completely unbiased. I don't even really follow the players like I used to, back in the days with Kopitar and all these guys. I used to know everything about them. But Dustin Brown was like my favorite athlete. So I don't really have, and it's very enjoyable just to watch, completely void of. It's like it reminds me of once football playoffs come around. It's like I no longer have my fantasy team, so I'm not stressing out while watching a lot of these games. And hockey's just been really, really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, no, it's super fun to watch. And that's, you weren't here, Mitch, what I was saying like on our episode last week was, if you don't have a rooting interest because you don't live in the southeastern United States, where 3 of these teams are, like the furthest west team is Dallas, the furthest north team might be Carolina, right? So none of these teams are north or west. At least you can, like the Stars Oilers series, you can root for the country you care about more. Again, most of these players are Canadian or Russian or Finnish or wherever they're from, right? Not a ton of Americans necessarily. There's still other countries they play for, but as far as like having a rooting interest, all right, well, like me personally, I'm going to cheer for the Dallas Stars because that's a U.S. city versus the Edmonton Oilers that are not. And the other series, maybe you're for the defending champions to go back-to-back. You're for the Panthers. Or, you're like, no, I like changing it up. I like, rooting for the underdog, not the Canes are the underdogs, they're a higher seed, but because they didn't win it last year, you cheer for the Canes. There's reasons to manufacture and cheer for one of these teams. You just got to find them. And then you just get locked in because then it becomes so fun to watch.
Yeah. I just I out of curiosity, just went back and looked at who's been give Florida the recognition it deserves. For the last 11 years, I'm just going to read winner, loser, and then just look at the fact that the NHL has grown so much that it's for sure not known hockey places. Florida, Edmonton, Vegas, Florida, Colorado, Tampa, Tampa, Montreal, Tampa, Dallas, St. Louis,
Tampa.
Boston. I would say St. Louis, Boston's a good one.
Yeah.
Washington, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Pittsburgh, San Jose, California, Chicago, Tampa, Kings, New York.
You know
So
what's
it's
weird?
like
Yeah.
there's like a California, Florida, California, Florida, or Texas, Tennessee, Vegas.
Holding it down, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, dude, Florida's holding it down, and then like all these desert towns apparently, Dallas, Tampa, LA, Vegas. It's just crazy. It's funny to think like the NHL has grown so big.
Vegas is an expansion team, right? So that they made it. Didn't they win it all in their second or third year?
Yeah, I think their third year and like their second year, they were also really good. And they
The
lost in the finals once and won in the finals, or maybe something like that.
Coincidentally, Wayne Gretzky was on my favorite podcast, Dan Patrick, this morning, and he said he thinks a lot of these warmer weather cities. When he grew up, he said if you went to a warm weather city and played hockey, you were considered soft or whatever. He's like, nowadays the young athletes love showing up to practice in board shorts, going on skating for practice, and then being out in the deserts or in the sun the whole time. So he actually said something along the lines of he thinks the warm weather cities will continue to carry great hockey players because that's the destination they want to go play. Thought that was interesting. Like, you can imagine being on the Kings or the Florida Panthers or whatever in Miami. You just go out and like after practice, you go to the beach and lay out. Like, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I know. If all of a sudden like the Vegas Golden Knights are offering you a contract, and also the Winnipeg Jets are offering you a contract, you're like,
You're going the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Los Angeles Kings are offering you a contract, or you can go play in Detroit with the Red Wings, which used to be like the greatest players. It's like, no, I think I'm gonna,
yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, it's like you can't
He
imagine
said
how
the
difficult that
stigma.
decision would be.
Yeah, he said there used to be when he was playing, he said like Gordie Howe and Bobby Orton, all these guys, the cool guys all said, if you go play in these cities, you're soft and you're a second-rate player. You can't play on the big historical teams. But now a lot of the newer generations like, we don't care. So I thought that was interesting. So maybe this is a thing to come, or it's just, whoever the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning needs to get a better contract to go work for like the Flyers or someone.
well, the problem is they paid their quarterback too much, and that's why the Panthers are.
Hey,
Anyway,
is
moving
anyone
on.
getting paid on the Lightning 55 million? I doubt it.
Well, no, just the Panthers beat the Lightning in the first round of the playoffs this year. Anyway, yeah. Any other things to talk about hockey? Which, by the way, hockey is going on right now. Oilers just scored, unfortunately, take the lead 1-0 over Dallas. So that game is happening. Yeah,
I had a question that was kind of back on football, but not specific.
as long as it's not about the quarterback conversation, I'm gonna slap
It's
you.
not. It's how do you guys feel about the owners passing the NFL players to be playing in the
Oh yeah, that was last
27 or
year.
whatever?
Yeah, the Olympics.
It's not going to happen. You're
It
not going
happened.
to
It
get any
passed.
but you're
It
not going to
passed.
get any like real superstar playing in that. I don't think.
Yeah, and the other question too is
So who's our QB going to be? Is like we're not going to have like Josh Allen competing against Lamar for that spot. You don't think?
No, not
Okay.
even. No,
well, and,
not a
and
chance
you
in
see
hell.
one of the like I guess star quarterbacks of the flag football league came out and was against it. He's like, these guys don't deserve to take our spots in the Olympics, and they didn't help build the sport. And like I get where he's coming from. They didn't help build your sport, but it's like because they built the real sport,
Yeah.
and you guys just
Like your sport wouldn't exist without them.
yeah. So like I don't know, like I get where he's coming from, but also like bro, you're not gonna win that. So
I
Also, who's watched that? Who's watched like the flag football at any point in time? I
That's-
haven't.
did not know.
That's not fair of any. That's not fair of any because once you put a USA jersey on, anyone will watch. Like
Oh,
case in
100%,
point,
100%.
women's
No, I'm
soccer.
saying
Right,
he's
but
saying
he's
that they
talking about
built.
the- whatever
He's
the
saying they
league
built
is,
the
yeah.
sport.
Yeah.
I'm like, what did
Oh,
you build?
I gotcha.
What did
I
you
gotcha.
build?
I
You
gotcha.
you built nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying though, no matter who we send, as soon as they put on a USA jersey and go out and play football, we're going to be all about them and know everything about them.
100%.
So I get his, yeah. So I get his argument a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, I wish I could be in an industry where the top percent don't get to compete against me.
Well, that's the weird. That's always been the weird thing about the Olympics. Is like for a lot of the sports, depending on the sport, like professional athletes can't compete, like soccer, for example, right? Because FIFA doesn't want the World Cup to have competition, so like the best stars can go and play in the Olympics because of the World Cup. And in hockey for a while it was amateurs only. Then they allowed pros to go, and then NHL dialed it back, said no, you can't go anymore. And they realized that was a terrible decision for getting eyes on their product, so now they changed it, thankfully. And we're going to see NHL stars in the Olympics again, starting next year. But yeah, I don't think guys like Lamar Jackson are going to be out there, running around playing flag football. I don't think teams would let them. Even though the teams say, yeah, they can go compete, they wouldn't let them. But I do think there's going to be guys who are like, the 53rd man on the roster, like guys who made NFL rosters or made practice squads who are good and likely better than the guys who actually play flag football, but they want a chance to go and play for their country, and they're not really risking, $100 million contracts. So
you don't see like David Mills or Daniel Jones or some all these
no,
backups.
It's also a different skill set. Like U.S. flag football is 100% about speed and agility, so it's just going to be the third or fourth string guy, second string guys maybe that can do that. I don't feel bad about these U.S. flag football guys losing out on their spot at all. Like the team still has to win the spot.
Like basically, right? The fastest guys, right? Those are the guys who are going to be out there. Darius Hayward-Bay would be a legitimate first-round draft pick for flag football, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like this flag football quarterback, like complaining about it is kind of like if the movie Replacements, if they all complained about like the strike ending. You know what I mean? Like y'all, you guys were just holding it down until there was approval. Like you're not good enough to be in that position. If this guy, whatever his name is, wins out the job over whoever the NFL allows, great. But there's no way, like if Lamar Jackson said he was playing, or Anthony Richardson said he was playing flag football, like, bro, like, I'm sorry, this quarterback's losing his job instantly.
I'm also saying, like, it's just Dan Orlovsky was saying on one of the shows I was watching, I forget, he was saying, like, they have different rules, obviously, and one of the main rules that he's concerned about is like the ability to jam wide receivers on the line, and flag is much different. So like, you're just gonna not jam Tyreek Hill, or who's like a giant wide receiver who's big, like Mike Evans. I know he's a little bit older, but like, imagine not being able to jam these wide receivers on the line of scrimmage. It's just gonna be so.
Oh, dude, the Raiders just drafted like a 6'6" guy who runs like a 4.2 940.
Like, it's GG's. It's over with. You're not, and there's nothing you can do. You can't jam him. You can't, it's like, the rules are, it's just, these guys are going to get destroyed by the NFL players. But that's why my question was, how much are these NFL players going to want? The only other thing Dan Orlovsky said is he thinks there'll be some good ones, but the issue is in a couple years, whichever team thinks they have a chance at winning a Super Bowl, you're not going to see any players from those teams. So let's say the Chargers are bad in a couple years, you might be able to see a couple good players from the bad teams. So that would be interesting. But like if a team like the Packers are like in a couple years are like, no, we have a realistic shot with the roster we have and Jordan Love, we're not letting any of our players go. So I think that's what's going to kind of pan out.
Yeah. And I think people have to realize like Derrick Henry is not a flag football cheat code. You know what I mean? Like the dude is an NFL cheat code because it is a different sport. Where like a guy like Darren Sproles maybe, or like Dante Hall, or like kick returner. I think like special teamers, like punt returners, kick returners, like these like scat back wide receivers are the ones who translate to flag football the best, Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
I have one last one that'll be really quick if you want.
Well,
what?
Flag football, or is it still in a common flag football thing?
No, go flag football. Sorry.
So Vinny kind of talked about how like the flag football guy, like needs to hush or whatever it was, but it's like, what if like Lamar Jackson did go and that guy beat him out? Like, does that guy just get a monster NFL deal after that? Like, if Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whoever, Patrick Mahomes goes over to be the quarterback for Team USA, and that random dude beats him out for the job, like, that's another reason I think NFL stars won't go, because like, imagine going and losing out on the job, like that's not going to look good for you. It's high risk, low reward for an NFL player. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to be like cocky enough. You have to be like a Tyreek Hill that's just like, I'm going to win every race. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like DK Metcalf, who like signs up to do a 100-meter dash thinking like he is fast enough to win that. I think honestly, I'd be interested. Like there's like all these like Travis Hunter apparently can throw a football. It would be interesting to see like if we just put all NFL wide receivers out there. I bet they'd be really freaking good at flag
Oh,
football.
for sure. I feel like the whole team's going to be wide receivers because I don't know how flag football works, but can you run as a QB?
Yeah,
Oh, I would literally take the most athletic guy we
That's both
had
plays.
and just
dude,
run.
look at this quarterback. Like what I don't know his name, but I've seen highlights before. Like look at his highlights. It is like the most god awful throwing motion you could possibly imagine. It looks like it's like it honestly, oh my God, he's 35 years old,
Oh, wow.
5'7". It looks like backyard football, and he like is one of those that like throws. I don't know, dude. You have to
Sidearm.
watch it, and all he does is scramble and like make a couple plays. Uh, yeah, it's pretty funny though.
Any other flag football comments, Alex?
No, I just wanted to make that like observation. Anyway, yeah, you can go on the next topic.
So the sports Emmys were last night. If I had to tell you guys what is the best studio show, just any, I'm not even going to give you the nominations. What is your guys' favorite studio show?
NBA on TNT.
That lost. That was nominated, but they lost.
I don't even know like what you like show where they're in a studio. You mean?
Yes, it just the category is called Studio Show
Like
Daily.
does the Pat McAfee show count because they're in a studio?
Yep,
Then yeah,
that's exactly.
that's Pat McAfee show for sure.
And then there's also a Studio Show Weekly. So, for example, the winner of Studio Show Weekly Emmy was College Game Day.
Oh, nice.
I can see that.
So, what was your favorite daily? So, you think it's McCaffrey? That's a good one. They were nominated and lost. The TNT crew was nominated and lost. My show, the Dan Patrick Show, was nominated and lost. MLB Tonight, Good Morning America, or sorry, Good Morning Football. Sorry, not America. Good Morning Football and PTI were also nominated. They all lost. Who won? If you had to guess.
I don't know. Now you're making me think it's going to be like some like
Is it
random
Around the Horn?
like
No,
Barstool show
Around the
or
Horn
something.
did not get nominated. It's NFL Live. Like, how does like they have so many analysts and so many studios? The fact that that show won bothers me. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I watched last night, and I don't know why. I like this part of this because it's something I watch, and it's like the sports Emmys is very fun for me, and it's like all the categories is way more fun than the real Emmys. And I was so glued to it last night
Hmm.
watching it, and I was like, oh, who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? They're like NFL Live, and then on today on my favorite podcast, Dan Patrick, who was nominated, the first thing he opens the show with is, "We lost to a guy who ran out of the back of the end zone for his career."
Oh wow.
That has to be like a political vote somehow. Like, there's no way that you can watch any of that other content and never vote for that. Here's the thing, like, I think the Pat McAfee shows also has its own like draw. Like, I can show Dakota clips of NBA on TNT and we'll watch it for 10 minutes because it's just so funny. Like, you can't sit here and it's such high quality. Like, you can't sit here and say the NFL Live is the best studio show at any year that it's been
Any
on with
year.
all the competing shows.
I
That's
can't even
fucking
name who's
wild.
on that show anymore. Like,
Dan
It's like
Orlovsky.
Dan Arvosky and is Ryan Clark on that too?
Yeah, I think so. They alternate. There
My
used to be the
God.
Patriots guy, the Patriots linebacker, what's his name, Brewski or whatever. But yeah, Vinny, to your point though, best studio host personality. So studio host, not just best personality, because that's
So like
next.
it's like Ernie
Yeah, Ernie won.
versus the other.
He beat Scott Van Pelt, Keith Scott, Mike Tirico, and Scott Hansen. Scott Hansen's the NFL Network. I was rooting for him. Ernie won. Best studio personality should be pretty obvious.
Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley won, beating Nate Burleson, Rylan Clark, Kirk Herbstreit, and Dan Orlovsky.
Oh my God, like that's like low hanging fruit. Like, I think you could give it to Herbie though, but like
Herbstreit's
Barkley's on a
good.
different level. Like, anytime Barkley
Yep.
opens his mouth, you want to hear what comes out.
So best play-by-play. Mike Breen lost. Ian Eagle lost. Noah Eagle lost. I didn't know there was two Eagles, but Ian Eagle and Noah Eagle. Apparently one's for NBC Peacock and the other one's for CBS. I think one of them's the Eagles play-by-play. And Mike Tirico lost all to some guy named Joe Davis. I didn't even know who he was.
Who's Joe Davis?
The Fox play-by-play guy. Apparently once what's his name left?
Oh yeah, I know his name. Joe Buck.
Joe Buck. Yeah, once he left, it went to Joe Davis. And then the last category that was fun for me is best sports personality. So Barkley won studio analyst, best studio analyst, but best studio personality with the category was either Troy Aikman, Greg Olson, Bill Raftery, or John Smoltz. Who beat those guys?
McAfee.
No, Peyton Manning.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, really? For his
Yeah.
role on the show? What's
I
funny is I actually think like that on the Monday Night Football
He's pretty
analysis,
funny.
like Peyton's pretty funny, but I think Eli's funnier on that show. Like Peyton doesn't
Eli has a
seem
much better
in his
personality.
element.
For sure.
Look, he wasn't even Greg Olson, Bill Raftery, John Smoltz, and Troy Aikman. That's who Peyton beat.
Like
Troy
Peyton
Aikman's
is
a good
funny,
one.
like he's a comedian, like when he has a sketch or a skit. Eli is off the cuff funnier than Peyton, and I think the stuff he says on like the Manning cast is way funnier than what Peyton says.
Absolutely.
Here, I'll give you one more. Best emerging personality. So basically the last category, but more new to the scene or whatever. Like
Eli Manning.
no, he's not on there. I'll give you the 5 nominations, and one of these is the winner. Best emerging personality. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jason Kelsey, Nick Saban, Richard Sherman, or Jay Wright.
I mean,
Wow, that's actually a super
it
solid
should be
lineup.
Jason Kelsey, but I don't know who
It
it's going
should be, but it's probably going to go to Saban because he actually was pretty enjoyable on College Game
Yeah,
Day.
Winner, Nick
He's so
Saban.
upset. Yeah,
They gave it to Saban.
I'm sorry. I would rather watch paint dry than listen to that guy talk. Like
And then
I get. Look, as an Auburn fan, obviously I'm a Bama hater because I've been for a long time. That is, I've heard nothing but good things about Nick Saban as a person, and he's obviously a fantastic football coach. I'm not knocking any of that. He's just monotone and boring.
And then all the other categories.
wait. On this point, though, Mitch,
Yeah.
before I want to talk about that category, I don't think Nick Saban is an emerging personality, and
Either do
unless
I.
if he didn't sit by Pat McAfee on College Game Day,
I
he
agree.
would not be an emerging personality. Pat McAfee somehow brought out a version of Saban that did not exist before this year.
Reese Davis is probably so underrated. Like he's an amazing host or whatever. So yeah, I agree. That was like a collective award.
I mean,
And then-
it's classic, like classic comedy duo, right? Like you have the straight man, and then you have the wacky guy that plays off him, right? Like that's
The setup
what
guy?
the McAfee, Saban combo worked out. You know what I mean? I don't mean
and then
straight.
don't even look up.
By the way, for all
stuff.
the woke people, since the woke episode, I don't mean straight in sexual orientation. I mean it's a comedy term. The person that acts like a normal, typical person and doesn't want things.
Wow,
to be
what is
funny.
normal and typical?
Wow.
In comedy, for example, who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third. He's the guy who's acting normal about the conversation, whereas the other guy's getting all freaked out and having a bunch of antics. Wacky
And then
antics.
all the other categories, those were the fun categories. You don't have to look it up. All the other categories, if it has anything to do with the Olympics, cleaned house. So
Yeah, makes sense.
any other category like
that's
studio
every 4
events,
years, though.
sideline, yeah, exactly. So it's like it wasn't as fun to watch this year as other years, but again,
Yeah, which is kind of funny though, because now that I think about me watching the Olympic coverage, I was like, this is not good coverage. So it's funny that they won so much stuff.
they won everything. It's like even like the documentary categories and the short doc, like all like I was surprised they didn't win the esports coverage, which by the way, we could end it on this, Alex. Call of Duty Championship weekend 2024, the Dota 2 Championships 2024. This is all 2024, sorry. IEM Cologne for Counter-Strike,
That's
and then
League
League-
Masters for those who care. Go on.
Extreme Masters, I apologize. League of Legends or Valorant Grand Finals. Which of those 5 won the sports Emmy? Call of Duty League Championship, Dota 2, IEM Cologne, League of Legends, Valorant.
I mean, so I didn't watch any of them. So I'm just gonna be guessing in the dark here. League is probably one of, if not the most popular, like esport video game in the world. But I don't know that they're necessarily the best production value because they didn't want to pay a lot of their casters and they let a lot of their good talent go.
Oh, maybe that's why. You're right. You're
So-
nailing on the head right now so far.
So for that reason, though, Valorant is also owned by the same company, so I'm not going to pick them unless they're investing heavily in Valorant now because they didn't invest in League.
That's 100% right.
So yeah, that was going to be my go-to. I think Riot moved all the money to Valorant maybe, and so Valorant
Yep,
won.
that's 100% what happened.
Yeah.
I wasn't even paying attention because I'm like, League wins every year. Like, no joke, League wins every year. And Valorant, the game I play, won. I was like, how did this happen? And I think you just explained it perfectly.
Yeah, this has been sports business about esports with Alex, and we can move on from that.
Meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, I've heard these names before.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I knew it wasn't IEM because IEM was big before games like League came and made their own league. Like, used to all those championships you were talking about would all be at an IEM. Intelligent Masters is where all of the esports championships were, and now like none of them are there because they've all gone and done their own thing. But yeah, we are way over time. I'd love to keep talking. There's some NBA and stuff, but I think we are out of time. So guys, any final thoughts? And we'll just have to cover some NBA in more detail next time.
Go Stars is tied up.
Yeah, I know, it's all tied. Come on. By the time you guys listen to this, you will know who's won, but let's go Stars.
Let's go Stars. The one closing thought I have, and we can segue it into the next episode. The worst flagrant foul call of all time, Caitlin Clark.
I wanted to discuss. Do we have time for me to go on my Caitlin Clark rant here?
Do it.
All right.
Do it.
So we had this discussion on our previous. For those who've been listening the whole time, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. For those who are new, why did you start on episode 30? I don't know. But Caitlin Clark, we talked about who I thought who had the best year in sports last year, and I have to pick Caitlin Clark. She has made women's basketball relevant. And look, we're not out there watching the games, and we're never going to be. The guys in this podcast, we're not going to watch WNBA games. However, her presence has made the WNBA relevant to where it's still a sports story, it's still a media story, it's still being covered, it's still on ESPN. And what Vinny's referring to is there was a foul called against her on Angel Sky, who's someone that she had beef with last season, and this foul was called a regular foul, which is what it was. Then they went to a review after the fact because Angel flopped and changed it to a flagrant, which no, it just was not a flagrant in any way, shape, or form. And she had, I think, what was it, 10% of all flagrant fouls in the NBA last season were against Caitlin Clark, and so now they're calling one on her, so there's a lot of ramifications there, talk about racism and stuff. Also, she is now tied the record for the most 20-point and 10-assist games in WNBA history. The record holder before her had played 463 games. She's played like 40. So she's just next level, the best women's basketball player of all time. It's already saying that, even though she's only her second season. But it is wild what she has done. The fact that we are talking about the WNBA, and not just us, but like ESPN's talking about it, like people are talking about it. The fact that people are talking about that sport and that league is all because of her. It's crazy what she's done for that sport.
Yeah, I agree. But the whole thing is being like, it's kind of like the QB thing to me, except worse. Like, it's one of these takes that people are defending the flagrant and Angel Reese's side of this specific moment so much that I'm like, are we watching the same sport? Like, it's not even like, to me, it's not even a close thing. Like, Caitlin Clark is out of position because Angel Reese pushes the rebounder in the back. She's pointing like, whoa, why didn't you call that foul? She turns around, realizes there's no foul. Angel Reese has the ball. She swipes down on her arms. I don't see a push that anybody talks about. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, this is exactly why we don't like Caitlin Clark, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, maybe that's my problem with the WNBA. Are the people that are making these takes, do they even watch basketball? Like, I'm so confused. And then I sit here and watch all these, like, talking heads on ESPN or whatever. Like, I think they are choosing to be the antagonist to say, like, against Caitlin Clark in this. Because, like, you cannot watch this from, like, a pure objective sports standpoint and say that there's anything wrong with that foul. You know what I mean? Like, my brain is too rigid to figure this out.
I don't want to.
I don't see a push. I don't see anything. I don't see a push.
So
I don't.
Here's on screen.
I don't want to be canceled for being too woke.
So I'll play it again. So here it is. She goes to strip the ball. She hits her arm. Angel flops.
Wait, can you go back to the play before that though? Like,
I cannot.
does it go back
It's
to?
just yeah. Also, I want to point out, again, to my point of making the WNBA relevant. So this is ESPN's homepage. Here are the sports they list at the top: NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB. WNBA is listed before golf and soccer.
I think that's because the
fact that it's even up
contract
here.
rights.
The fact that it's even up here.
I think it's because of their contract rights.
Like contract rights
ESPN
that ESPN puts them above golf and soccer.
Yeah, because they actually.
Dare we use the word rhymes with egg yolk?
And how do you get those contract rights? Oh, you sign a deal. Why do you sign a deal? Because there's money in it. Why would there be money in it? Someone like Caitlin Clark, potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be the guy who gets us canceled for being woke, but this seems a little scripted, as the kids would say. Seems a little scripted.
All right, boys and girls, we'll end it there because the first period of this hockey game ended, so it's a good time to end the episode. Final thing, and then I'm wrapping it up. So, anything you want to say, or I'm going to end the podcast here, boys, because we're way over.
Oh, enjoyed everything.
Yep. SGA is the least exciting MVP in basketball history.
I was about to say, he won the MVP vote. We'll discuss that next time. Oklahoma's also the best defense in basketball, but we will discuss them on the next episode. Peace out, everybody. We're out of here.
Adios.